45% of Americans have no investable assets, and they're fucked. I mean, point blank, period. Right?
Yeah, yes, they are.
And they don't even know it, which is like the worst type of dire financial position. The other thing is, obviously, there's a huge debt crisis in America, whether it's student loans or other types of debt. And so I always say to folks that, like, the rules of this game are pretty simple. It's like, spend less than you make, get the hell out of debt, make sure that you get invested, be super patient, and just chill.
This is the Blue Collar Bitcoin Podcast, a show where average Joe firefighters explore the most important monetary technology of the 21st century. We talk Bitcoin, we talk finance, and we talk shit. What is up, everybody, and welcome back into another episode of the Blue Collar Bitcoin Podcast. This week, Josh and myself, Dan, had the privilege to chat with the one, the only, Anthony Pompliano, as well as his brothers Joe and John Pompliano. Pomp is an entrepreneur and tech investor, and he hosts the well-known Pomp Podcast, which has been downloaded over 20 million times. Pomp also writes a daily email newsletter on business, finance, Bitcoin, and we can attest it's chocked full of substantive and timely material. This chat you're about to hear was the two of us joining Pomp and his brothers on the Best Business Show, which they host weekdays at 11 a.m. Eastern. This rip session was a rowdy one. The five of us discuss a number of topics, including why Bitcoin is an empowerment tool for the middle class, our journey so far on the Blue Collar Bitcoin Podcast, why mustaches are the new laser eyes, who would win in a Pomp family brawl, strange and challenging sexual dilemmas, and much more. All the aforementioned Pomp material, including each of their Twitter handles, will be linked down in the show notes. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at blue_collarbtc. And if you are regularly listening and enjoying the show, you can help us grow our reach by liking, subscribing, and most importantly, leaving us a review. This here episode of the Blue Collar Bitcoin Podcast is powered by Coinkite, makers of simply the best Bitcoin security hardware in the business. The ColdCard is a one-stop shop, ironclad, air-gapped, verifiable source code hardware wallet suited for Bitcoin cold storage beginners all the way up to pros. Rest assured, we are not going to rep products or services on this show that do not align with our ethos. The two of us have and continue to trust our hard-earned capital in the hands of this device. Coinkite makes a plethora of other products beyond the ColdCard, including the gorgeous BlockClock display art device. You can throw Bitcoin price, hash rate, halving dates, market cap, and a ton of other cool metrics up on this puppy. Aside from my wife and kid, this is hands down my favorite thing in the house. Explore all Coinkite products at coinkite.com. Now, without further ado, here's our chat with the Pomp Boys on the Best Business Show meets Blue Collar Bitcoin Podcast.
All views and language expressed by the hosts and guests in this podcast are solely their personal opinions and do not reflect their employers or organizations they are associated with. Do not treat any of the content in this podcast as investment advice or as an inducement to follow a particular strategy. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only.
We got the Blue Collar Bitcoin Podcast fellas coming on because what we're going to do, we're going to do like a joint episode. Normally I interview people, Joe and John interview people, but we've never had anyone come on here and ask us questions. So that'd be weird. So instead what we're going to do is just have a little conversation. They're going to ask us questions. We're going to ask them questions. We're going to keep going until we get tired of asking each other questions. So why don't, like a little Vanna White action, John, why don't we bring them on out? There they are. What's up, fellas?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
We're doing fantastic. How are you guys?
Wonderful.
Man, with the four,
like
with
the
the
four
four,
box
yeah, with the
going
four
here.
boxes, I feel
Four
like
boxer.
we're killing it right now.
I'm glad to see you guys. You guys killed the SoFi ad today. I mean, they can't complain about that one.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're mad that we're trying to have a good time, then like that's not our fault.
Where are the mustaches at, boys? You guys are going to you're going to Bitcoin 2021 without mustaches? Come on. What is this?
I need some time. How long does that one take you to grow out?
I don't know, but it's majestic.
No one tell you that. That one, that is a stick on. I'm gonna call you out. That is a stick on. It looks good though.
Yeah, is that fake?
Are you a
Yeah,
cop?
it is.
Oh, it is
Thanks
fake.
for having us, boys. We're excited to chat.
Did you hear what my brother just asked?
No, what do you say?
Are you a cop?
As far as you know, no. No, we're on the other side of the coin, man. Everybody loves a fireman, and cops don't get that same treatment. So
That is true. That is very true. Everyone's
we
like,
get
oh,
away
cop.
with absolute murder.
right. Tell us before we get started so our audience understands what's going on with the Blue Collar Bitcoin Podcast, which, by the way, is just a baller-ass name for a podcast. But what's the general premise in terms of the episodes you guys do?
Yeah, we've been at this for about a year. I'm Dan right here. Josh is the unmustached fellow.
Unmustached and gray.
We've been at this about a year. We are both career firefighter paramedics near Chicago. We work together. We're good friends. And we've had sort of lifelong passions and interest in finance, econ, philosophy. We have been in Bitcoin since 2017, and it's more than fun and games for us. We think it's super important. We're convinced that it's key to our demographic surviving the economic pandemic ahead. And we've been privileged enough to talk to some people that we've respected and read and been diving into for a long time over the last year. So we're just exploring as organically as we can. We're being ourselves and diving into the implications of this paradigm shifting protocol.
I love it.
Do the other firefighters you guys work with get it, or do they think you're crazy?
We've been in a years-long process of figuring that out for them. and I think they thought we were crazy initially. And at this point, I mean, obviously number go up technology has helped make us look a little bit smarter than 5 years ago. But it's people are getting it. You know, people are starting to understand that you shouldn't get shaken out when this thing goes down 50% or 80%. And in the long term, it goes up and to the right. So it's been easier and easier as things go along.
We've got the department we're at. It's about 50 firefighter paramedics. We got nodes running. We got ColdCards galore. And I'll tell you boys this much. Yeah. If this thing does anything remotely close to what we're expecting, there may be a wave of unexpected retirements about 2030.
What is this? The name of the city or the town?
We do not dox that information, unfortunately.
There's
somewhere near Chicago,
that's like,
we'll tell you that much.
Shit, we better not have a fire. The whole fire department quit.
There's a whole village secession planning model. Like, we've got 16 firemen that we presume have this much Bitcoin. Price is here. We got to start replacing some guys.
So, I don't know if you guys ever heard the episode I did with Rachel Feinstein, who is a comedian, and she's married to a New York City fire chief. And so she told me this hilarious story. She's like, when I first met him, all the firemen would come over to the house and they'd be like, hey, Billy, fuck the government. Like, hey, Billy, I read this conspiracy theory on the internet. What do you think?
All the conspiracy theories, man, alive and well in the firehouse. Like, they are. We've got guys that are into ancient aliens that take this stuff like this is gospel. Like, I think there's a Bible of ancient aliens in that firehouse somewhere.
Gentlemen, there is nothing rowdier on planet Earth than shift change coffee at a firehouse. I mean, it is rambunctious. If you guys think you're rambunctious, you got to drop by at about 8 a.m. at our agency. It gets nuts.
I can only imagine the things that get said inside of a firehouse around this stuff. And she was telling me the story because she was like, by the way, they all love Bitcoin because they're questioning everything, right? Nonstop, all the time, they question everything. And so Bitcoin is this like source of truth. So help us understand in terms of what's been the biggest question that the other firefighters have had. Have they been more concerned about the technology? Do they just think it's like a Ponzi scheme? Like, what's the biggest like obstacles in their mind?
I think the biggest obstacles are basically what everyone experiences, which is when they start understanding this, they start going down the rabbit hole, and then these shiny objects that we all call shitcoins get involved, and they start following those into, spending just putting tons of money into random low liquidity shitcoins and getting wrecked eventually. That is the biggest problem that we see, and that's primarily why we started this thing and why we think it's so imperative to help people understand why Bitcoin is very different from the rest of these assets, because it's very easy to get distracted by a whole lot of other smaller nonsensical things in the space. NFTs come to mind, ICOs in 2017. And each one of these times that the price pumps, there's always a new shiny object that people seem to chase off of a cliff. And so what we're trying to do is basically guide people away from that, the lemmings jumping off the cliff, into something with some substance, and help put some guide rails up so people don't end up getting hurt.
I think the other thing too, Pomp Boys, is that, we're not trying to make enemies, and we're on this learning journey with anyone else. We're not looking to be dogmatic and closed-minded. But we are saying in this space, you got to, that Fidelity just released this piece, I don't know, a couple months ago, Bitcoin first. And I think our message to a lot of our listeners and peers is, hey, understand the implications of this protocol first, and then you can branch out from there if you so choose. But, we're as members of the middle class, median wage earners, we just don't have cash flow to waste. You know what I mean? So a lot of what we're trying to do is push people down the learning journey. Don't do what we're saying necessarily. We're here to try to motivate you to go learn and understand and grow on your own. And fortunately, having been in this since 2017, the space is so much more ripe. There's so much more education material. It just abounds. And there's many places to go to learn more about macro, monetary history, Bitcoin, altcoins, the whole gamut.
When people come to you guys in the Firehouse, what do you tell them to go do first?
Read books. Yeah. We've got a list of articles and books. I think I've filled notebooks full of them already, but I mean, it's a lot of the major ones like the Bitcoin Standard. The bullish case for Bitcoin is a couple that come to mind. One that I love, which is probably something that most people would just fall asleep reading, but it's really good, is Nick Szabo's Shelling Out piece. If anyone listening hasn't read that and they're interested in the history of money, amazing piece. I mean, he goes back thousands of years from the beginnings and kind of helps you understand why money is really just a mental construct we all agree on. And that's something that it's kind of like that old tale of the fish in water doesn't realize it's swimming in water because it's been in it its whole life. The money that we use today is really only 50 years old or so, and it can change quickly. And understanding that these mental models can change because it's all about trust. Yeah. What is the thing you trust?
Everything Dalio's ever written is early in our recommendation. Just a holistic, basic understanding of macro. Like Lynn Alden's blog is unbelievably high on our list, just because, Lynn Alden is, first of all, the intellectual integrity is off the charts. The genius is off the charts, but she's also approachable. She's the kind of writer and thinker that a firefighter who spent 40 hours learning macro can still kind of trace through her articles. But yeah, as Josh said, the first order of business isn't haul out and buy Bitcoin. It's, hey, start asking some fundamental questions about what's going on in the economic landscape around you, and then begin the learning journey. And then obviously we think Bitcoin fits in that equation, but don't trust, verify, baby. Go do your own homework.
Absolutely.
I know one of the things that you guys spend a lot of time on and would be valuable to talk about is this idea of like Bitcoin's role for the average American, or like the hardworking average American. And when you think about this, how much, and my brothers and I have talked about it a ton, is like there's the investment case, there's the like censorship and seizureship resistance as a value proposition. But to me, it seems like the most simple way to wrap your head around this is just savings technology, right? It's like the average American isn't worried, whether they should be or not, but they're just not worried about somebody not allowing them to transact or coming and confiscating their wealth. And again, maybe they should be, but just if you go and you polled the average American, they're not going to say that is a concern for them. They also, for the most part, the average, it does not think that they are going to the casino and going to triple their money overnight. Some younger people, maybe they do think that, but like the average person who just goes to their job every day doesn't think that. And so is that aligned with kind of how you guys have seen people talk about this and kind of wrap their head around it? It's just like, oh, okay, I've been told my entire life that I should save my way to financial security, but it seems like if I do that in dollars, it ends up getting eroded away because of inflation, or I have this feeling if I can't get ahead. Now, if I do it in this new asset, then there's some ability for me actually to preserve my wealth. Or how do you guys kind of have those conversations right now?
We resonate massively with everything you just said. I think what makes us slightly unique in this space, and I don't mean to undermine everybody else's experiences with what's going on with debasement and inflation, but we are in a subset of earners that we are feeling this right now, right? We are feeling inflation, right? And when you think about real wages and the implications of 7.9 CPI prints that show no sign of abatement, and our wages are going up, let's say 1 to 3% a year, you have declining real wages. You have asset price inflation that impacts people's ability to, say, buy homes. We talk on our show a lot about how I've been on 5 years. Josh has been on 10. Even since we got on and bought our houses, it's different for guys we have on probation that are trying to buy homes, right? Things are changing rapidly for middle-class members. And you need to do something to protect yourself, both from the implications of a long-term debt cycle unwind and pension risk, right? We talk a lot on our show about pensions. We just had Foss and Pish on, I don't know, a few weeks ago, talking specifically about pensions and just the implications of fixed income exposure, mandates, and if the system really implodes, that's in jeopardy, and that's what a lot of people are relying on. So this is far more from just a fun theoretical joke for us, that we really, the two of us, believe strongly and have for years now that this is insurance on the traditional fireman investment account, if you will.
And even to jump in and on a very simple level, the incentives behind this make saving so much more aggrandized for people. Like people traditionally saving with dollars, they're even though they may not realize it, they're watching their buying, their purchasing power, just dissolve. But when they're over the longer period of a couple of years watching the amount of money they've saved in Bitcoin increase in value in dollar terms, it incentivizes the saving on a much grander scale. And we see that at work too. Like people are DCAing in more and more as they understand with the implications of all this, and that they're actually getting ahead by saving in Bitcoin instead of in a money market paying them 0.02% at Chase or whatever their alternative is. This is the best savings technology available if you have the balls to just withstand those 50% drawdowns. You just have to be educated well enough to understand that this is a long-term proposition and you can't be shaken out of it at 50% down, and then you'll be rewarded.
I think the other thing along this line that needs to be introduced is we have seen, gents, that this does change financial behavior. It changes time preference, right? As you learn and grow and understand Bitcoin, it lengthens your time preference. It is a great, we often call it a financial decomplexifier. The current system is so complicated and there's so much you need to know and understand to even stay above water. Bitcoin really simplifies that. And then, this is going out more long-term, but we believe firmly Bitcoin will restore an actually sensible, non-clownish cost of capital, which will probably disincentivize unproductive debt to some extent, which we also see a lot of our peers involved in, right? There's a time and place to have productive debt, but if you're driving cars you can't afford, buying homes you shouldn't have, and financing TVs, your cash flow isn't freed up to buy productive assets. And part of the reason people are incentivized to do those things is because interest rates are manipulated so low and we're not looking at a true cost of capital. So the implications of how this affects portfolio performance and investment behavior they're tremendous, we feel, for us and our demographic.
Yeah, absolutely. When you start to think about pay, I hopefully I'm not wrong on this, but I think that your pay is determined as a firefighter by the local or state government, depending on kind of what the network is that you're in. And it's set at predetermined percentages as part of the annual budget. And therefore, if inflation explodes, they don't necessarily have the ability to come and change pay to react to that economic environment. So when you have kind of a pegged pay, it's not like you guys can show up, to the fire chief and be like, hey, big dog, I need a 5% raise. There's no ability, right? There's no ability for them to do that.
No, that's absolutely true. The way ours works is we're basically they choose a bunch of comparable fire departments in the area, and they give us I think we're number 3 out of like 10. And so we get slotted in right in the number 3 spot between 10 other departments around us. So, and yeah, nobody's getting 8% raises to keep up with inflation. I can guarantee that.
Yeah.
It's going to probably be 2.3% or something.
Yeah. And to be fair to the private, like that's not unique to us. Everybody's real wages are going to lag for most people. Obviously we have some people suckling from the QE, what's going to be yield curve control teat. But in terms of most salaried employees, public and private, you can bet your bottom dollar your real wages are going to lag. But they have to. There's just a mathematical guarantee. I know you guys talk about this on the show all the time. There is a mathematical guarantee that we're going to be unless you're positioned properly, a harmfully inflationary environment for the foreseeable future.
Correct. When you guys tell folks that you're into Bitcoin and also a firefighter, does that make them more interested? Like, I always think of this idea of like, if a Wall Street banker in the suit and tie, cologne, slick back hair, the shitty fake watch, like they step out and they're like, let me tell you about this financial investment. People are like, I'm good, man. Like I'm out of here. But when you hear it from not your friend, because you don't believe your friend, you don't believe like your parents when you're a young kid or whatever, but it's somebody in the community that you respect, and I put firefighters up there. Does that change the conversation at all from what you guys have seen? Or do people not really look at the occupation as part of the conversation, and they're just like, oh, here's two guys who seem to have a good understanding of kind of economics and what's going on in the world?
I think that at least the guys we work with, I think they understand that the two of us have done our homework a bit. As far as Dan said at the top of this, that, the two of us are into economics, finance, and all that stuff. And this has been a long journey for me before Bitcoin, and the same for Dan. We've both been invested in, the S&P 500. We haven't really been stock pickers traditionally, but understanding the way money works, like I've been huge into Austrian econ for years. And I thought gold was going to be the thing that was going to save the system until 2016, 17, when I understood the implications of Bitcoin and what this actually means for things like gold, which are, barbarous relics, as some central bankers would have called them. But I think the thing that gives us some gravitas in this, at least with the people that we know, is just the simple fact that we've both dove down deeply into some of the books of guys like Ray Dalio and tried to have a real holistic understanding of macroeconomics, which I think is fundamental for having any idea of where this is going and why. Most importantly, why? Dan, you got anything?
I think it can cut both ways. You can kind of have the assumption that it's unlikely we're going to have something to contribute. That could be on one side of it. You also have a hardcore libertarian bent in the Bitcoin community. So a couple municipal government employees talking about Bitcoin can rub people the wrong way. But then I think on the other side, there is something unusual, let's say, that unexpected about a couple firemen barking this hard about this. And then, on our show, I think one of our goals is to have robust, substantive, meaningful conversations, but also make names and people you've heard a lot of in this space more approachable. That's one of our goals with having these people on our show, is to explore both the superficial and the deep. And right. I think what we do for a living and being sort of down to earth and tactile and in our vocation allows us to be sometimes more approachable for people that are but tired of hearing the next finance guy talking about Bitcoin.
Yeah. When you really boil this down too, this is an innovation that takes thousands of hours of study for most people if they're really going to try to get a grasp of it. You've got everything from economics, the Austrian versus Keynesian. If you want to understand that, that's hundreds of hours of reading and research to understand just that. The history of money. And, we talked about the changing world order and shelling out and how those are great resources to understand what money is. That's another couple hundred hours to really get a grasp of that. The game theory, reading something from like John von Neumann, from basically the guy who invented game theory, and understanding the incentive structures are what really matter here. Like I forget who said it, but you show me the incentive system. I think it was Charlie Munger, and I'll show you an outcome. And that's really like theoretically where this thing goes is how are the incentives set up? What does that impel people to do? And then you can kind of see, not exactly, but you can get a rough idea of where this is all going. And then the software side of it, the tech side of it, which is, I would say, Dan, and my weakest point, but it's imperative to have at least some, at least flimsy grasp of how the software works and why this is such an ironclad system.
Yeah. If you don't mind, Pomp, I want to flip it over to you three. What are some of your guys' thoughts, speaking to our audience, about why you think Bitcoin might be an empowerment tool for the middle class? Maybe dive into inflation if you got any fresh thoughts. What are the Pomp boys thinking on that side of the microphone here?
45% of Americans have no investable assets, and they're fucked. I mean, point blank, period.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
And they don't even know it, which is like the worst type of dire financial position, is that you think the solution to pursue is to simply save money. And actually what you're doing is you're making it worse and worse in some way. The other thing is obviously there's a huge debt crisis in America, whether it's student loans or other types of debt. And so I always say to folks that like the rules of this game are pretty simple. It's like spend less than you make, get the hell out of debt, make sure that you get invested, be super patient and just chill. And and they're going to do the work for you. And it sounds too simple, but like the key is actually to be consistent and disciplined over very long periods of time. And so I think that Bitcoin is got this very unique structure, but more important than the structure is that it helps people focus. And when people focus, they then get out of this game of like, oh, how do I go and trade or try to do anything that would be quote unquote risky? Instead, all I need to do is go to my job, be great at it, get paid, take that money, spend on whatever I need to from an expense standpoint, and then go and just save. And that savings type technology allows you over long periods of time. It's no different than real estate, right? If you really think about real estate, now, yes, there's cash flow associated with it, and there's some tax ramifications that can be potentially positive. But at the end of the day, all you're doing is you're dollar cost averaging into a hard asset, and you're essentially just arbitraging time so that the dollar gets devalued against the hard asset. That's what Bitcoin does as well. And so I think that like that to me is the most powerful piece of this is just getting people to understand money, getting them to understand what the challenges are in the financial system, and then just saying like, look, you don't have to be a genius. I think that's what scares people. It's like, oh, I don't even know how to, open a stock brokerage account. Well, Robinhood and SoFi and a number of these businesses all solve that by dropping the friction so low. But if you think about what these platforms are having to do, right? And the reason why we actually partner with SoFi is it's not just about trading or buying equities. Like it's a it's like a holistic financial experience. And so when you think about it, it's like, how do I get out of debt? Right? Well, I got to refinance. I got to be able to get out of that debt so that I can actually have money to invest. How do I get exposure to various financial assets? Right? Okay, I've got to figure out how do I get the money. Then also, how do I think about banking? And like, if you really think about the average American, like they go into a bank, the bank screws them, right? Like whether it's because they don't allow them to get upside in certain opportunities, or it's because they sell them shitty products. And so when you start to kind of look at all of that and you just boil it down to a first principles standpoint, like what is the problem? It's corruption of the money. And the incentives get tossed
absolutely
in the wrong direction. And so now it becomes a zero-sum game. And in that zero-sum game, guess what? One person versus a corporation, good luck, right? And I think that to me is like the big thing. And so I always sum it up with a statement that everyone always like, oh my God, that's so bombastic. But I genuinely believe this. The adoption of Bitcoin globally will do more positive impact than all global philanthropy combined. And the reason being, it's the only first principles solution to a wide range of problems, which is if you uncorrupt the money, you set us back on the right path. And what other thing affects 45% of Americans and changes and closes that wealth inequality gap? There's nothing.
Yeah. And then to zoom out, to internationally beyond these domestic issues we're exploring. Like we had Gladstein on last year, and the freedom implications, the liberation implications of this technology are an absolute mindfuck. I mean, it is crazy what you got 3 billion people globally that are unbanked, and they're never going to be banked. The crazy thing is you look at the uptick of peer-to-peer usage on Bitcoin in say Nigeria and countries in Africa. They are going to absolutely leapfrog the banking system because of this technology. And it is mind blowing. And you got, I had my dad over the other night who I've been working on hard for years, and he's starting to get this. And what really, really brought this home for him and really clicked, this was just 2 nights ago, was seeing Jack Dorsey and Alex Gladstein on the main stage last year at Bitcoin 2021. And Jack saying, there's going to be nothing else like this in my lifetime. Talking about him and Jay-Z doing work in Africa and saying, I'm dedicating the rest of my life to this technology. It is magnificent what the implications are going to be, not just domestically, but internationally for all people that have been cut off from and disenfranchised as a result of this current exclusionary financial system.
It's great to see that that's what puts them over the edge, right? Is to see the conviction of it. I don't know, Joe, John, what do you guys think?
I was just going to add, it's not even unbanked is certainly a large part of it, but just financial sovereignty in general is a huge part of it. We've seen what's happened not only in Russia, but in Canada, right? Where they're freezing the bank accounts of people that are protesting against things they don't believe in, right? So just the sovereign individual, I think, is obviously going to be super important, and Bitcoin is a large part of that.
Yeah. The billboard after billboard, as Dan and I like to say, that has been put up in the last couple of months alone is extremely compelling for anyone paying attention. A country like Canada, which I think most Americans, Dan and I would probably agree, we view them as Americans almost. I mean, they're just above, they're right over the border. They're very similar. They have a very similar structure to us. And to watch, a first world Western country censor its citizenry with no cause, just this is what we're doing today because we didn't like what you did yesterday. No court order, nothing. We're just going to do it. And then to see that stuff happen.
Yeah. And then to see it recently transcend the individual to the sovereign nation state level. I mean, we're no fan of what Putin's up to, but when you can just freeze FX reserves, it doesn't take a genius to realize we're going to a different global settlement layer. I mean, it's crazy when you think about it's an innovation that's time has come. I don't know what else to say. And it can be almost exhausting and infuriating when people have been exposed to it and don't see it, but we need to have patience. We've all been there before, and it takes a lot of pecks on the head before this thing clicks. And that's how it is for most individuals.
Pecks on the head is such a good description.
Yeah.
I think it was Lori on your show the other day that said all these third world or developing countries like in Central America, they're having to subscribe to a nuclear power, right? They're going to choose the Eastern or Western side for this because it's going to bifurcate. Why wouldn't they choose an independent structure of money that they can't be censored? I mean, if you subscribe to the Eastern one, now you've got China and potentially Russia being able to censor you. You subscribe to the Western one, the US can censor you. Why would you choose to have any ability to be disintermediated? Just pick the censorship resistant money at the baseline.
What do you guys think is the biggest thing that us certainly, but other people also can do from an education level? Is it just telling people to listen to podcasts and read books and stuff like that? Because in my mind, right, and I think your guys too, this makes a ton of sense once you start to do the homework and you understand that maybe you have to do 1,000 hours or 100 hours or whatever it is, but you start to get it, right? And I think at some point, it's just how many more people can we tell about it? How many more people can understand it? So is it just education in your mind, or is there something else for the average individual?
I think personally, it's something different for everybody. So just exposing yourself to as much as possible in order to cast a wide net, I guess I would say, because eventually you're going to run across that one article for Dan's father. It was listening to Dorsey and Alex Gladstein. And for me personally, it was reading the book Sapiens back in 2017. There was a chapter on digital currency in there, and I'd heard of Bitcoin, but after having heard a couple of times about Bitcoin, 2 pecks on the head, and reading that chapter in that book, something just clicked. And I just had to read everything I could find on it. But that was the moment where it happened for me. And I don't know what it is for most people. It's probably very different for people, just depending on their disposition, what it is they're interested in. But I would say if you have any interest in this at all, try to just read a wide range of things, because one of those things is probably going to be the linchpin that finally sets you off on the right angle.
As you guys talk more and more about Bitcoin, I'm sure the community around you has basically seen you as, hey, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's more educated than I am. Let me reach out to him. Why are people reaching out to you guys if they are about Bitcoin? Is it the price appreciation? Is it the technology aspect of it? Why do people come to you guys, or just think about Bitcoin in general?
I think that people are more aware of artificiality in the system right now than they ever have been before. I'm 32 years old, so I've now been investing for roughly 10 years. The ball is really rolling downhill, and there's more things to grab onto right now. So you're seeing people ask fundamental questions like, hey, during one of the biggest economic crises of the last 100 years, global pandemic, why is my fucking retirement account at all-time highs? You know what I mean? These are things that aren't making sense to me. Why is my house up 28% in 1 year? There's just more evidence right now. Why is meat twice as expensive as it was 6 months ago? There's more entry points. There's more touch points where people are recognizing there's something going on bigger than they understand, which I think is prompting people to want to learn more. So that's one side. The other side is just number goes up, man. I mean, we were talking about this when it was at $4,000 in 2017, and it's 10x. So it's shiny, it's bright. And that is, as much as price can be a deceiver, it's also very important. I was drawn to it because it went from 1,000 to 20,000, right? In that cycle in 2017. And that'll be the same thing when we go from whatever our low is here to, new all-time highs. It'll draw people in, and that's fine. We've all been there, and those are opportunities to seize. I think, Josh said this off the top, and Anthony, you hit on this a second ago. The main priority though is to get people learning, because if your habits aren't in order, if you're impulsive and emotional and reactionary, and you think you're going to generate wealth by trading stuff around, you're sorely mistaken. And that's the beauty of this asset, is it gives you an opportunity to kind of sit on your hands, man. I mean, we firmly believe if you're in our shoes and you free up your cash flow and you DCA over the next 5, 10, 15 years, you're going to be okay. And it is that financial decomplexifier that allows people to sort of get out of their own way with personal finance, because we do have a lot of peers who are swing trading and momentum trading and excited about this and excited about that. And they're almost assuredly late to the market, because if you're a fireman and you're thinking a stock's sexy, you're probably late to the market. You know what I mean? So there's just not that many asymmetric opportunities out there for a firefighter. And I'm here to tell you, this is one of them. And it's a thing of beauty.
Tell me more about the nodes. Do you guys have miners? Like, what's going on in the Firehouse in terms of what I would consider not just the knowledge, but the actual activity that's going on there?
We've got, Dan's got a node running. I think we've got 5 or 6 guys running nodes at this point. Miners are just out of reach for a lot of people because, they're $12,000 for an S19 at this point. Plus the fact that residential power is 11 or 15 cents a kilowatt hour, whatever it is, it's almost pointless. You might as well just buy it, DCA it with the money, personally, is my view. A couple of guys are shitcoin mining with video cards in their computer to buy Ethereum and then flip it for Bitcoin, stuff like that. But yeah, no one that I know at least is mining right now.
It's kind of this road to sovereignty in this thing, because I mean, we've been longtime ColdCard users. We're running our own nodes. We're routing our ColdCards through our own nodes, but that's something that's happened over years, and a lot of messing with this protocol and using it. So you got to be careful with the cold storage thing. I mean, we're constantly barking cold store your Bitcoin, but we're also saying there's a large disclaimer saying don't do it until you're ready. And that just comes with experimenting and time. But yeah, we have a lot of dudes cold storing their Bitcoin on ColdCards at our fire department. I would say we have the highest ColdCard per capita usage of any fire department in the United States.
I think there's no argument on that point.
What is significant others? What are their thoughts on all this stuff? Is this just my husband, boyfriend, whoever, and his crazy friends and at the firehouse, and let's just ignore this? Or has this spilled over? I think I see quite a bit of Bitcoin paraphernalia all in the backgrounds of both of your shots. So it seems like maybe this has infiltrated the home as well.
Yeah, we're both married. We have kids. Josh has 2. I have 1. I actually have another one on the way April 1st, which is one is absolute bullshit that it's coming April 1st, because I'm not going to be at Bitcoin 2022. I tell you, I messed up, man. Hey, word to the wise here. You got to keep the wife at arm's length 9 months before this conference, because this is bad timing. I think our wives trust us. You know what I mean? We've been disciplined, non-impulsive investors for a long time, and
they've also watched the number go up over the last 5 years, so they're okay with it. I think my wife might watch the price of Bitcoin more than I do. I actually think I know she does, which is hilarious.
Is she watching it because it's part of her paying attention to what's going on in the market, or is she watching it calculating in her head?
it's criticizing me when it's not going well. And then like, on the other end, it works the other way. It's a double-edged sword.
It's all right.
Yeah.
If it makes you guys feel any better, when my daughter was born, my brothers over here said that I was screwed. And my wife reminded everyone that the baby cannot receive Bitcoin yet. And so I feel like every family, as they get educated on this stuff, it becomes obvious, right? In terms of how valuable it is.
I think having kids has made me even more interested in this, which has demonstrated to me how important it is, because I want to provide for my family. I want to have a stable situation for all of us and to pass on. And I think in some ways that's been a good introspective checkpoint of having been a dad for a couple of years. I'm actually taking this more seriously than I was before.
Yeah. Dan and I've talked a lot too about how funny it's going to be in the future when either this podcast recording is still around and like our grandkids listen to it, and either A, grandpa was a complete idiot, or B, grandpa was a genius. There's going to be no middle ground. There's going to be none.
Maybe it'll be both. Maybe like, damn, grandpa and his friend was an absolute moron, but at least they bought Bitcoin.
Hey, I got a question I got to get in for the three of you. And this is the most important question of the segment.
I'm out.
Okay, so just brace yourself. So fight breaks out in the Pomp house.
I win. Hands down.
Hold on.
These guys.
Oh, that was easy.
I'll put their heads in a toilet seat.
Fight breaks out. Hold on. Fight breaks out today. Not 2015, not 2005, not in the glory days. Okay, today.
Get up and do it.
This isn't noogies and Charlie horses. This gets real. This goes to the floor. Their tempers are flaring, emotions are high. Rank the brothers, not just top dog, rank them top to bottom for us.
There's only two people in this room that are hitting the floor, and they're sitting next to each other over there.
I was just going to say, I'm top dog. The other two don't matter.
No, I don't know if you guys have siblings or brothers, but we have 5 boys in our family. And what used to happen, there's 2 things that were important. First was when fights would break out, it was kind of like the geopolitical chaos going on right now. Like if you weren't involved in the fight, you better pick sides quickly because you could get caught in the crossfire. Yeah. So it was like, all right, who I think is going to win, who I think is right, and it kind of all that happened. The second thing is that there's this amazing story where I don't know how my dad thought this was a good idea, but he bought 2 pairs of boxing gloves at one point. Joe and John were probably, 5 and 7 or something like that. And myself and my 2 other brothers are older. And so we decided that it would be a genius idea to give our 2 youngest brothers, Joe and John, boxing gloves. I took one of them as like I was going to be the corner man. Another brother took one as the corner man. And then the 5th brother was the referee. This lasted for under 30 seconds. Obviously, the difference between a 5 and a 7-year-old is like pretty significant at that age.
Oh, yeah.
Joe punched John. And as soon as one swing, as soon as John got hit, he just looked at all of us and went, oh shit, he's about to cry. And it was just like, keep him from running upstairs and telling our parents. And he had a bloody nose. He ran upstairs. Boxing gloves never made an appearance in our house ever again.
Yeah, that's right. Your boy gave him a bloody nose.
Hey, when's the last time things got chippy in the Pomp household? Like some wine going at like Thanksgiving?
Nah, there hasn't been a bloody nose in a while, but there's some verbal sparring for sure that goes on.
Who's the guy who's punching someone in the balls when they're losing?
Nah, like this is the thing is when your brothers growing up the way that we did, there was basically 2 rules. One was you ain't go too low because that was like you disrespected them.
It's just not cool.
And then the second one was we never punch each other in the face because that would leave obvious damage that would then lead to more punishment from our parents. But everything else was fair game. Throw things, tackle, whatever we could do, we did. Which now I'm going to flip it on you guys. What goes on with the fist fights inside the firehouse?
We know what we haven't had like a knockdown throw out brawl, but there's definitely like wrestling that goes on. Like somebody'll do something stupid or say something stupid, get tossed over a lazy boy and go to the ground, just for some wrestling. Like no punching, none of that. Who's going to hold out?
Obviously, if our Chiefs are listening, we're totally kidding. We have some.
I do have another. I have a Firehouse Dilemma for you guys.
All right.
So this is like a little bit of like what goes on at the coffee table. Of course, not at our organization,
No,
but
other organizations surrounding us.
no, none of us. But so you guys have two choices. There's two doors to choose from. Door A is Janet Yellen in lingerie, dolled up, hot and bothered, ready for the three of you guys to enter door A. Door B is Christine Lagarde swinging in a Chinese basket. Which one are you guys choosing?
A or B, boy.
Is there a C?
No, that's it, man.
I can't wait to be a firefighter. I'm definitely going to become a firefighter.
That sounds like a lose-lose to me.
Yeah. That's like the situation the Fed is in right now, man. Rocking a hard place.
Well, yeah, no, it is. It's like inflation or recession. Pick your poison, of course.
The old Yellen Lagarde rocking a hard place Fed dilemma.
People are putting the throw up emojis in the chat.
But I'm sure Lagarde gets down. She's European, you know.
Listen, the one thing that I will say is in the military, there was always marry, kill, right? As the three options. And that game goes to some weird places real fast in conversation.
Yes, it does.
Sure does.
So
you know it well.
I'm not going to answer, which is me bitching out. But
well, the people in the chat seem to be answering. They said,
what's the poll going to? What are we calling here?
They said Lagarde is kind of spicy. Yeah, there's some nonsense going on in here, but she seems like the winner.
We'll let the community go ahead.
Yeah.
Little community engagement project for today. All right, where can we send people to listen to the podcast and find you guys on the internet? If I guess you guys technically aren't on the internet as much as the podcast is on the internet.
Yeah, we're active on Twitter way more than we should be. We're at blue_collar BTC. Our wives hate Twitter at this point. Like, we're so glee, you know, I'm sure everybody's been through this, but it's fun. It's fun. It's fun to engage both seriously and jokingly on there. And then we have episodes coming out weekly. We're on every podcast platform, Blue Collar Bitcoin Podcast.
Awesome. Now, I will say one other thing is as firemen, obviously you need to be well rested, which is exactly what our sponsor 8 Sleep does, is help people be well rested because they have a thermoregulated mattress. What is your guys' sleep schedule? Do you guys get 8 hours, or is this like one of these things where you're getting woken up all the time?
When we're on shift, it's almost always guaranteed you're getting up at least once in the middle of the night. You might get lucky once or twice a month and actually get some sleep, but that's why we have 2 days off, so we can come home and get some sleep.
Yeah. It's one thing that's I'm handicapped on every episode because I'm coming off a poor night's rest and Josh is well rested. We're on different shifts, so I'm always coming out. Like, I was on duty last night. We only got up once, which was nice. But man, sleep. You talk to any fireman, we love our sleep. Like, when we're at home for those 2 nights in between shift, out like a freaking light because
they have an 8 Sleep mattress.
Yeah, hey, we'll give you our addresses, Bob.
Yeah, you can have them send them over. We'll test them out.
By the way, you guys are the only 2 smart podcast guests we have ever had who realized that, that would probably be a smart ass.
Hey, we've got how many mattresses?
Test them.
We've got between the 3 firehouses in our town, we've probably got around 30 mattresses guys are on. So if you could just give us a 30 spot pump, we'll give you the address.
No, not an issue at all. We'll just not sell any of our Bitcoin to try to send you guys mattresses.
We appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. Anyone who has not listened to the podcast, please go listen to it. As much as we're joking around here, both of you guys have a very strong understanding of economics and kind of really just money in general and kind of what's going on in the world. I've been pretty impressed. So please keep up the great work, and no, they don't have any bed bugs. And people in the audience are saying you guys are hard workers, which is bullshit, because just because you have a mustache doesn't mean that you're a hard worker. Right. But that is true.
Start growing them, boys. Take that thing off. John, Joe, Anthony, let's go. Get these things rolling. It's the new laser eyes. Don't be caught without it down in Miami.
I love it.
You get that laser stash to get that thing off.
Thanks for having us, guys. We enjoyed every minute of it.
All right. We'll definitely do this again in the future.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks, guys.
Later, guys.
See ya.
Legends.
Thanks so much for listening into the show. If you enjoyed this discussion, be sure to like or subscribe on whatever app you're using for podcasts or on YouTube. And if you have an extra minute, go ahead and leave us a review. We are also active on Twitter at blue_collar BTC, and our email address is bluecollarbitcoinpodcast@gmail.com. We invite questions, comments, or inquiries of any kind. We look forward to you joining us again on the BCB Podcast.